Our guy Monte Ball is on the Hall of Fame ballot. I'm excited to talk about some of my favorite moments from his incredible career as a Badger, where I think he stacks up on today's Locked On Badgers. Plus, important targets in the 25 class visiting. And let's talk about this recruiting staff a little bit. A lot to get into. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Happy Wednesday, or wherever and whenever you're getting this show, however you're getting it, thank you. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. Thank you for making this a part of your day. Thank you so much for helping us build this community. It is Locked On Badgers. Thank you for being an everydayer. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And we are day 2 from hotel life. And no, the missus is not mad at me. I didn't get kicked out. This is my work stuff. It is what it is. Let's talk about Montee Ball, right? On the College Football Hall of Fame ballot, amidst a slew of other dudes, right? There are legends on this list. Like you peruse down the list on this nomination ballot. It's Mark Carrier, if you remember the big physical defensive back. Aaron Donald's on this list, Marvin Harrison, Graham Harrell. And again, this is the college list, right? So Graham Harrell, if you're an NFL guy, but Graham Harrell in college was a dude. Michael Huff, if you remember from Texas, the plays he always made. Kajana Carter's on this list, and you can go on and on and on and on. So this is an illustrious list of college football legends. Montee Ball is on it. I am so excited for it. I'm going to do another show where I break down where he kind of stacks up with all the other running backs on this list. Obviously, I mentioned one of them, Kajana Carter, former Penn State Big Ten great, went to the Bengals. I think he was picked 4th overall, Kajana. But yeah, 2-time. Let's talk. This is not a Kajana Carter show. This is a Montee Ball show. Let's talk about Montee Ball. 2-time consensus All-American, Big Ten MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Doak Walker Award winner, a Heisman finalist, 39 touchdowns in a season, tied with Barry Sanders for most single-season touchdowns in the NCAA. And by the way, that's one of those dudes, right? If you're tied with Barry Sanders in any rushing category, you're an all-timer. If you're tied with, it's like one of those things. If you're tied with Dan Marino in some passing category, Barry Sanders in some rushing category, Jerry Rice in some receiving category, Lawrence Taylor defensively, he's tied with Barry Sanders for the most touchdowns in a college football season. He had 39 touchdowns in a season. 39. That number's hard to even quantify. How many really good running backs don't get 39 touchdowns in their career? Right? How many really great running backs don't get 39 touchdowns in their career? Dude had 39 touchdowns in a season. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. NCAA record for single season points, 236 in that 2011 season. Yeah, he was a stud. Just a complete workhorse, physical, great balance, great vision. Again, not breakaway speed, but really tough to bring down. Minimized there was no wasted motion. He minimized the extra steps, got north and south quick. Great fit for this Badgers offense, obviously. I want to talk about some of my favorite moments with Montee Ball, right? I'm going to start with, and when I've had someone else ask me, because I did a show, and Badger fans, let me know on this one. This is a segue. I did a show about a year and a half ago, and a guy asked me, all right, start, bench, cut. And it was Montee Ball, it was Melvin Gordon, and it was Jonathan Taylor. So in the comments, I'm not going to tell you what I did on that. In the comments, let me know if you had to start one, bench one, and cut one out of Montee Ball, Melvin Gordon, and Jonathan Taylor. How would you rank that? But anyway, when he was asking me, what is your favorite Montee Ball moment on this show? And a lot of people have other ones. The one I always go to is that 2010 Iowa game. Like if you remember that 2010 Iowa game, that Iowa team was incredible, right? Incredibly tough. Multiple draft picks on both sides. It was a back and forth bloodbath of a game. And John Clay got hurt in that game. Who's the back? James White got hurt in that game. Montee Ball hadn't played much up to that point, right? And he was the third string guy. He came in on a critical fourth down play. Scott Tolzien was the quarterback. Montee Ball, I think it was 4th and 4 in the fourth quarter. Montee Ball got it on a slant, had to go down and catch it. I was always so impressed with a third string running back in the most critical moment in maybe the second biggest game of that season on 4th down, making a catch kind of at his ankles, at his knees, to preserve a drive that was needed to win that game. Now later on in that game, he would have that iconic touchdown, right? That's really the moment. All superstars have a moment where you see something different, something unique as a sports fan. All superstars have that moment where you're like, oh, there's something there, right? Jonathan Taylor is that run he had against the starting defense in fall camp, where the defense was like, I hope we're not bad because we can't tackle this guy. Turns out that was the moment for Jonathan Taylor. The moment for Monte Ball was that touchdown against Iowa. He had 3 people on him. It was to take the lead, fourth quarter, extended the ball. Super risky because that could have been a fumble, but incredible effort play. That was the moment the Monte Ball star hit. And then let me give you some other ones. That same year, Michigan, 2010. If you remember, this was the game where Paul Chryst was just like, we're going to run the ball every play, and Michigan's not going to stop us. And we took them to the woodshed. Monte Ball in that game, 29 carries, 173 yards, 4 touchdowns against the Wolverines. That was like his big coming out moment against a blue blood, just eviscerated that Wolverine defense. It declawed them. It was incredible. 2011, you got that first time Monte really had a big beatdown in Nebraska, 151 and 4 touchdowns. Again, he was a touchdown machine in that 2011 year. You get to the Michigan State game. Here's another favorite moment I have of Monte Ball. The 2011 title game, right? He ran for 137 yards, had an early touchdown in that game. Again, that Michigan State team that year was absolutely loaded too. Gerald Worthy was on that team. They had offensive weapons. That was a great Big Ten title game, went back and forth. Monte Ball ran for 137 in that one, kicked off the scoring, but he also had that 37-yard pass, right? If you remember, Russell Wilson down to the 1-yard line. Yeah, that was iconic moments in Monte Ball's career, iconic moments in the Wisconsin Badgers legacy. 2012, this was always a really impressive game for me. It was a loss. Ohio State was really good that year, as they are most years, right? 21-14 loss, but Melvin had 39 carries that game, right? And I remember, and 39 good carries. He was 39 for 191, average 4.9 per pop against a really good physical Ohio State team. And I remember thinking after that game, like, there's not many running backs anymore that give you almost 40 carries against a physical defense. Like, that dude must be done. It reminded me of Brian Calhoun in that famous Michigan game where he got like 40-something touches between rushes and receptions. I was always so impressed with Monte's toughness on the field. And that was something that you can never take away from him. There were some games in that 2011 year, or that 2012 year, I should say, where he got beaten up. I think Utah State was in that year where he took some vicious shots. Oregon State was kind of rough, but that dude was so tough on the field. And you look at that Ohio State game, 39 carries. He almost willed us to victory. And I'll always remember that one. I always really respect him for that one. And then you have the 2012 Big Ten title game against Nebraska, right, where Wisconsin kind of limps into it. There's no passing game. Nebraska's the favorite. Nebraska was a pretty decent favorite. And then we beat them 70-31 without basically needing to throw the ball, right? Monte had 21 for 202 yards, 9.6 per carry in that game against Nebraska, 3 touchdowns to humiliate them. There's that famous line, "Get out of my way, I'm heading to Pasadena," right? He's got the big stiff arm. Just a beast of a career. Very, very deserving on the Hall of Fame ballot. I'm going to get a little bit more into how this works, when we're going to find out results, how he stacks up against the other running backs on that. But one of the all-time great Badgers, one of the all-time iconic Big Ten running backs, and he was really part of that run, going from, John Clay's in there, James White, to Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor and Corey Clement. You're not going to find a better stretch of running backs at any program in college football history, period. I mean, I don't care. You're not going to do it. You're not going to get better than that run for that period. And Monte Ball was one of the linchpins of that. So, tip of the cap, Monte Ball Hall of Fame ballot, one of the all-time greats. All right, we're going to come up and talk about a couple really big 2025 targets that are coming up on official visits, what I think of them, how important it is for the Badgers to land them. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Game Time. I've talked about Game Time a lot. Stop buying tickets like a caveman. Like, seriously, what is this, 1937? What are you gonna roll up to the arena or the stadium and try to hobble around and find some tickets? No. Like, come on. It's 2024. We've had cheese in the crust of pizza for like 30 years. It's time to elevate your ticket buying game. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Game Time, best inventory, the most tickets, the best prices, last minute flash sales. Tickets to everything, sporting events, theater, concert, whatever you want. Game Time has it all at the best prices with the best inventory with the least amount of logistical planning. There's no reason to buy tickets anywhere else. Stop buying tickets like a caveman. Do it like an elevated person, right? Elevate your ticket buying game. Find the best tickets to the places you want to go for the cheapest prices and pictures of the seats before you get them over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Okay, let's talk week 2 official visits. Some players that I'm going to do a more comprehensive preview of everybody that's coming in when it gets some official lists. But a couple players I want to really highlight. One of which I'm still kind of trying to work to see if he's actually going to be here, but he's definitely worth talking about, and that's Maxwell Roy. Let's start with Maxwell Roy. Why are we starting there? Because he would be one of the biggest commits the Badgers have secured in a long time. Right, defensive lineman. 6'3", 270 pounds, composite 4-star, 247 4-star, top 150-ish type player in the country. If the high school sounds familiar, the Badgers do have a bit of an in here, right? St. Joseph's Prep School is the high school of Emilio Agard, the cornerback from last year's cycle. So there is some familiarity there with the school, with the program. I know those two at least are somewhat friends. They talk. Let's talk Maxwell Roy. What makes this so unique? First of all, it's the blue blood offers are all over this one. Ohio State's a big player here. I know there's some other blue bloods that are huge players here. But he gives you, if you think back to last year's class, Ernest Willer, Dylan Johnson, really big-time commits. I think Roy is even a tick above, right? He's so powerful. 6'3", 270 pounds, plays with great balance, impossible to cut to get on the ground. Other opposing offensive linemen try it, but he just stays on his feet. Great motor. There's clips of him, and motor is something that matters, especially with defensive linemen. There's a clip of him chasing down a running back 20 yards down the field. At 270, most players don't do that. That shows you a level of intangible that I think translates to the defense line really well. Very powerful hands, violent, extends his arms. Like, he'll really rock offensive linemen back into the backfield. He's really able to push that pocket. We're talking interior disruptive presence. What have been one of the most difficult things for the Badgers to get? Interior disruptive presence. You had a Keanu Benton, but aside from that, it's been really hard for Wisconsin to find that mold of guy. And I think Roy is actually potentially a little more disruptive, but not as stout as a Benton. He's a guy who can shoot some gaps on the interior, get between the guard center. Good hands, again, really violent physical hands. He can disrupt the offensive guard and then just shed them. A lot to like here. Good awareness as well. He'll get in the backfield, locate the running back, continues working down the line of scrimmage if it's not there. This is a big time get if the Badgers are able to get him. Even getting him on campus, which I'm not 100% sure is going to happen. I think it is from what I know. I think he's coming on campus, and that's something I'm working to confirm a little bit, but he's a home run. This is the type of commit that you put at the top of your class if you're Wisconsin. If you get him, it is an absolute home run. It would be one of the best commits they've gotten in several years at one of the biggest positions of need they have. So, yeah, I'm not trying to undersell it here. Maxwell Roy is a huge potential visitor coming on this weekend and potentially coming with Amelia Agard as well. So there's a bit of a connection and familiarity there. The one thing I'll say about this staff, and they've proven it time and time again, this staff knows how to close. When they get people on campus, they know how to close. They know how to finish the deal. They know how to prioritize recruits and create moments, right? Remember, it's easy to forget that all these players are young. They're 16, 17, 18, 19. They're young players. They're young people. And what were you like at that age? What was I like, right? More impressionable, more susceptible is the wrong word, but you want moments. You want to be prioritized. You want the experience and the environment. That's what this recruiting staff does so well, right? They create an experience around the official visit. It's not just you're here to see Wisconsin. You're here to be sold on the program, and this staff does such a great job. So I'm like, as long as they get the guy on campus, right? If you can get Maxwell Roy on campus, this staff and this recruiting department gives you a puncher's chance in any battle if you get them on campus. I firmly believe that. I've been blown away by how good this staff does with the on-campus visits, but you got to get them, right? So I'm hopeful to get him. It is an enormous target at a huge position of need for the Badgers. Next one I want to talk about quickly, Eugene Hilton Jr., Zionsville, Indiana, if the name sounds familiar. Everybody knows his dad, one of the all-time great receivers, 6'2", 195 pounds. He is a 4-star composite. So, again, filling in boxes that Wisconsin doesn't normally get. 4-star guy, 6'2", more of a boundary receiver. Obviously, has the bloodlines and the lineage. I like players that have that kind of upbringing around the game, within the game. They're probably going to be a little more advanced with dealing with the media, expectations, probably a little bit more advanced with work ethic, practice habit. He's a pretty polished guy on film. I like that about them. Route running is well above average compared to what you normally see from high school players, which again makes sense considering the dad, right? Hands catcher, definitely will go up and snatch it. Doesn't want the ball get into his body a lot. He is a pretty polished receiver for being a high schooler. And again, he's got the requisite size, right? You're talking 6'2", 195. He could be 6'2", 200 as a boundary receiver, physical with good hands. The ability to go up and get it, not burner speed, but I think he's got enough deep speed. I like the ability after the catch as well. He shows some quickness in and out of his breaks, Hilton. So he's going to get you some yak yardage. He's going to be able to go up the sideline and make a couple tough catches, contested catches, because he shows that on film. He's a really good prospect. Again, I don't think from a physical tool standpoint, everything is elite, but I think it's good enough. And then the intangibles of being who he is, being around the game, his route running, his physicality after the catch. This would be a great pickup for the Badgers. And again, fill into an area that's been tough for Wisconsin to get, those larger boundary receivers. That's a big one coming this weekend. So we'll see what they do there. And the last one, I love this dude's film. I love this. And I've been watching his film for a while because the Badgers got a kid at his high school last year, and I was tipped off on this player, Byron Lewis, the running back out of American Heritage. Obviously, the same high school as Xavier Lucas, who we are all incredibly high on. Byron Lewis has really fun film to watch as a running back and plays at a very high level of competition. American Heritage has burners all over the field. They play great talent. Byron Lewis stands out even amongst that type of talent. What do we like about him? Between the tackles, he's really, really natural. Great balance, but it's really great vision, right? He understands where he's trying to go. There's no wasted motion, very subtle cuts so that you're not losing speed, you're not wasting movement. He runs like a running back, right? He has the it factor. There's a lot of really talented athletes that don't have the nuance to run between the tackles because they can't read the blocks. They can't see what's happening before the defender gets there. So they just run into the backs of their blockers, or at the high school level, they just try to bounce it to the outside. Byron Lewis does none of that. Like he sees it before it happens, and then he hits it, gets north-south really quickly, and then runs through contact, right? There is great contact balance with Byron Lewis where he doesn't go down on the first. He has a spin move. He has a really great little jump cut near the line of scrimmage where if the hole's not there, he can press it by himself that 1/10 of a second that great running backs need, finds the hole, foot in the ground, north-south, accelerate. He's a menace in the secondary. DBs had a really hard time bringing him down. He outran a lot of angles on the film against even really, really high-level competition. This is a battle. Byron Lewis is heavily, heavily pursued by Miami, Florida State. It's going to be a battle to get him out of that area. But again, if you get somebody on campus, this staff has proven they can throw haymakers, right? This staff will throw haymakers, and they will get in battles with big-time schools. So I'm very excited about him. Obviously, Wisconsin doesn't have a running back this cycle, so Byron Lewis is potentially that big target there, and definitely excited to see what comes of those three. Again, hopefully Maxwell Roy does come on campus. I'm going to do a follow-up show with really going through the entire group that's coming, but those are three that have really stood out to me, and Badger fans, you should keep your eye on those guys. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a quick break and talk a little bit about this recruiting department and the modernization of Wisconsin football. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break to say thank you. Thank you for jumping on the show. I appreciate you. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. It means a ton. So thank you. All right. The last thing I want to talk about here, and I've been kind of, by the way, I bought this Badger shirt, right? And it's a shirt of a raccoon. And the lady, long story short, I thought I was buying a Badger shirt. The lady sent it to me. I'm like, hey, lady, this is a raccoon. It's not a Badger. And she said, no, it's a Badger. I said, okay, whatever. Long story short, if you're listening on the podcast, you're not seeing my shirt. If you see it on YouTube, it is what it is. Okay, let's talk about this recruiting department. And you see last year's class, this recruiting department led by Pat Lambert, Maximus Steinecker, and many other, many other really important cogs to this. And I'd be remiss to try to name them all. So I'm not going to, because then I would forget somebody and I'd feel bad about leaving somebody out. But this is the modernization of college football. And you think back to just a couple years. And the reason I'm talking about this is we had a question the other day from somebody who said, would Jim Leonard, would Paul Chryst have been able to recruit to this level? And the answer is they never put themselves in a position to be able to because they didn't have a guy like a Pat Lambert or a Maximus Steinecker, right? And that is where, if you're going to be competitive in college football now, it's those type of things that you have to be elite at. You can't afford to not have a dedicated general manager type of guy, a dedicated recruiting guy, a dedicated personnel guy, right? That's just where we are in college football. And that's why Luke Fickell, maybe even more than everything he did on the field, he also brought in this modernization of what Wisconsin has to be with this type of recruiting staff, right? And they're just crushing it. Quite frankly, like, you look at what they did last year, you look at the battles they're getting in this year, you look at a guy like Logan Powell coming onto campus with an official visit coming up to Alabama that this staff is able to shut down. Like crystal balls out there for Mason Posa, who would be another Big Ten target with official visits coming up to Texas A&M and Oregon. This staff is really, really talented at what they do. And people shouldn't lose sight of that because a lot of programs don't have that. And for the longest time, Wisconsin didn't have that. And that's the answer to the question of, could Paul Chryst or previous staffs have done this? And the answer is no, because I don't think they would have built the infrastructure around that is required to do it, that you need to have now to be a successful college football program. The other part of this that rattles around in my brain is, what can a version of this exist on the basketball side, right? Who is the Pat Lambert, Max Steinecker on the basketball side to basically create these experiences on official visits? Who is that person to lay out the red carpet and to close, right? I know there's an NIL factor. There's an NIL factor in football as well. But you still need, when players come on campus, you have to be able to wow them. You have to, because they're competing against other schools that are wowing them, right? You're competing against other schools that are creating those experiences. So if you don't do that, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. And I just kind of wonder if some of this from the football side can rub off on the basketball side, right? Can a version of this exist in both sides? So I don't know, just thoughts, but primarily it is be grateful like this recruiting department is here now for the Badgers, because it gives them a leg up and it gives them a competitive advantage against those programs who haven't committed to building that infrastructure around the program. So they're really talented. And we're seeing the results in the recruiting field. So on Wisconsin, a bunch more coming up this week. Really do appreciate y'all. Let's go.